seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Minutes are approved. Number 5 is filing the information review, the semi-annual report of the first pre-election report.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Virginia Bloom, and I'm from the Elections Division downstairs. I'll be giving you the oral report on the semi-annual reports that we're closing out last year, as well as the first pre-election report for the June primary election. All the current incumbents for the county offices are the candidates that are on the June ballot. You'll recall that that election cycle started last year, June. It is 1 year prior to the election that the election cycle starts. That report was captured in the semi-annual report that was due to be filed with our office on January 31st. All the office holders did file their report. Everybody was in full compliance. I don't have any violations to report in that regard. With regard to the first pre-election report, we have full compliance with regard to the first pre-election report. The majority of the county candidates have filed online. There are 2 candidates that we are still in the process of getting them signed up for filing online. However, I do have the original reports downstairs in the Elections Division. There is also 1 new independent expenditure committee that will also be joining us online fairly soon. So you will be seeing those reports at that location on the website. So we do have pretty much full compliance. There's a couple of people that were late, but otherwise all the reports are actually there at this time. Okay. I do have a list of candidates for the county offices. I will remind you that the entire county offices, 2 Board of Supervisor districts, the 2nd and the 4th, and each county officer is up for re-election in June. The list that we are passing out to you at this time is the full list of candidates for each one of those offices. There's a total of 13 candidates altogether. You'll note on this report that there are 3 candidates that are marked with a 470. The 470 form is a single-page reporting form that the candidate signs stating that they do not plan to spend over $1,000 of their own money for this campaign. Those reports are not filed online. Only the candidates that have committees that are collecting and expending money for the election are on the website. There is a $10,000 threshold, which means that the candidates are not required to file online until they reach that threshold, and that's why we're in the process of still getting everybody signed up at this time. So if you should look at the county website, which I will be showing you during the demo, you will note that not every single candidate is on that website due to the fact that not everybody has a committee, which is the candidate's option of how much money they want to spend. Okay. So far so good. All the reports look pretty good. We are sending out a few amendment notices with regard to the election cycle versus the calendar year. But otherwise, we're having good results with regard to the filing on the website, and I haven't had any complaints from the public with regard to getting access to the information that way. Do you have any questions? That's my report for... Oh, thank you very much.
That you have almost total compliance, even those that aren't coming.
Yeah.
You're getting the information out.
Yes.
That they comply.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
It doesn't happen without
follow-up. Yes,
yes.
You're absolutely right. Yes. Luckily, and I won't take full credit for that. We do have a full staff in the Elections Division, and all of us do work on that. But for not the fact that we have ISD, who is even here at this meeting to assist us when problems do come up with the website as well. So,
is there any problem? One of the candidates I noticed does not agree to the expenditure limits. Does that create a problem?
That does not create a problem in that there is a provision within the ordinance that does allow for that. You will recall if a candidate does not agree to to the ordinance, then there is a section in the ordinance that says that once that candidate reaches 75% of the threshold, they are required to notify the elections division or the county clerk, as well as their opposition, that they've reached that point, and therefore it does lift that expenditure limitation threshold for the candidates in that contest.
Any other questions? Congratulations.
Okay, thank you very much.
Nothing's been filed yet.
Well, actually, we have two reports. We have the semi-annual, which was January 31st, which is there, and then we also have the pre-election report. So there are two reports online right now for each candidate, if any one of you would like to take a look to see how the progress is going.
Is that the County of Ventura www.gov?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, it's a link as on the county clerk website, as well as the clerk of the board's website. There's a link to that site as well there. I will be showing you that a little bit later on in the meeting.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
There is yet another report, a second pre-election report. I do believe at the last meeting we did pass out that filing schedule. That one is due mid-May. Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
All right. A motion to receive and file. Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? It's received and filed. Thank you very much. Item number 6 is the elections overview of online electronic reporting and filing system. Back to the question. Where is it?
Yes. Okay. Let's see. Where's our? We do have it here, but if you want to see exactly how to navigate there, let's try and see if I can go to the home page. When you first log on to the county's website, this is the home page that you will see. If you go over here to departments, oh, come on. To departments. Come down to the elections division under county clerk. You will see that link right here, campaign finance.
Oh.
So from the elections division website, this is how a candidate gets to that location, and or the public get to view this information. First, I'm going to show you from a treasurer candidate point of view how they get into the system. What happens is, here, let's see if I can find. The treasurer is required, for each committee, the treasurer is required to come into the elections division with a copy of their statement of organization. The treasurer and I set them up into the campaign finance website as a user. And how that would happen, as I'm going to show you under login. This is what they would get. They'd get a username and password. They log in. Each committee is assigned their own page. Down below, listed here, are all the reports that this committee has filed. This is the name of the committee here. This is all the information that we have entered for this particular committee over here. These are all the reports that have already been filed. If we click on anything that's blue over here, which I will show you, this is an actual PDF of the report that's actually been filed. The treasurer has the option of coming over here, should they need to amend that report, to bring up that original report, make whatever correction they need to, and then file it again. You'll see in this section here, where it says form and process, it says no forms at this time. That's where the treasurer has the option of coming over to the new forms and starting a report and how they actually enter all their information before it's filed. I will show you that. This is a PDF of a report that's already on file. We are using the state forms, so they look exactly the same. Nothing is new. We did this to assist the candidates to make it easier for them to complete these reports. There are state requirements with regard to these reports. So not only do they have to file this report for the county, but they also do for state. So we're using the same form so that this one report will comply with both. Okay. This is the full report here. This is what the summary page looks like. And then any attachments with regard to contributions that this committee has received, as well as expenditures that this committee has made. This is the expenditures page. This is the contribution page. You'll see that they're required to put the name of the date of the contribution, the name, the address, to identify whether it's an individual, a committee, a business, the occupation and employer, the current amount of the contribution, and then the cumulative totals received from that individual contributor. You'll recall that the county has the threshold of $50 for all itemized contributions. Anything $50, or excuse me, under $50 gets itemized on this spot here. The state threshold is $100. The county is $50. So that's the difference on this one. Schedule E are the payments made. The candidates are required to list what they're paying for and how much it costs them on each one of their reports. And these are funds from the committee account. It's this section here that I would suggest the commission actually look at on each of the reports, because these are the expenditures that each one of these committees are actually making that relate to the ordinance. Okay. So that's the total threshold for that. Okay. All of these figures, the attachment pages, are all carried over onto this one page, which is the summary page, which should usually and normally does come right after the two cover pages. So this is a cut to the chase, and then the attachment pages give the specific information as far as the dates and the actual figures and how these totals came about. You'll see in column A, it is for the reporting period only, which is, this is the reporting period. This is what happened during that time frame. Column B is supposed to be, according to the ordinance, cumulative to date to the election cycle. So the current reports, the current pre-election reports that are online will have a cumulative to date from last year, June, through March 17th of this year. How much money they've brought in and how much money they've spent for that individual office. Okay. So these are PDFs. All of these are available to the public. This is the committee side, and that they get to check to see their own reports. When they want to file a new form, they come over here, click on New Form. They get the option of getting the regular standard report, which is the 460, the late expenditure report, as well as the late contribution report, which are these two forms here. You'll recall that those two forms are the forms used during the last 16 days prior to the election that has a $1,000 threshold for reporting. So every time a candidate reaches $1,000, they have to file one of these reports within 24 hours, these last two reports. The majority of the reports is this 460. We add the form. ISD created the program for us that when we enter a candidate into the system by downloading all their information from the 410, it automatically populates on the report cover. So I don't have to worry about a candidate's name being misspelled, their committee number being missing, or anything along that line. The only thing that the candidate is required to do, or the treasurer is required to do, is fill out the reporting period, what election cycle it is, and what type of report it is. So on this particular page, I would come over to this section, say it's with regard to the June primary, and it's my pre-election report. Everything else in gray, which you might not see too clearly here, says the name of the committee, the address, who the treasurer is, and all the contact information. We save it, then we close it. Okay, it tells me that the form has been created. Also verifies to the candidate that they've started up on top. Then we close it. That tells me I've started my form. Only after we start the cover page stating what type of report we're going to do does it allow us, you'll notice that this button has changed. It's now New Schedule. When you click on New Schedule, it gives you all of the attachment pages. What is it that this candidate is going to report on this report? The contributions, the expenditures, things along that line. Schedule A are contributions. You add the form. And this is where the candidate actually keys in all the money that they've received. They put in the date, they put in the name of their contributor, whether it's an individual or a committee, the occupation employer, the amount. When they do that, I'll give you an example. Okay, say it's an individual, and I'm going to say this person is a homemaker. This person is giving then the contribution is saved. You'll see that once you save a contribution, it clears the form. Sometimes they're entering quite a few checks all at the same time. When they want to see exactly where they left off, they go to View Schedule, and it'll show them what they've already put on the form. Or they can come over here and say, okay, this candidate or this contributor, I was incorrect in that they didn't give $500. I'm going to be editing this particular contribution, things along that line. So they can come over here and change whatever they need to, and then save it again. They have the option of closing the form. It automatically gets added. Once, if this is the final, you go to the summary page, you'll see that that $500 has now been carried over to the summary page. ISD created the program to automatically carry the figures over. You'll see that it's in column A only, because it's only for this report that that figure carries over. The candidate is required to fill out column B themselves. The program will not automatically track their income and expenses for them. They can close it. Now that, they can close that. Once the candidate says, okay, I'm ready to file, they hit submit. They get the little warning window that says, are you sure? Because as soon as you do, it's automatically posted on the website. It's instantaneously available to the public at that time. They say proceed. There's a reminder that the report has to be printed and an original signature on file within 24 hours in the Elections Division. That's what that does there. When it's filed, you'll see that it gets noted down below, and it takes it out of form and process. A committee can only work on one form at a time. So they can only work on one report at a time. Should they need to amend their 410, they would have to submit whatever they have or delete it currently in process with regard to a report and amend whatever else they might need to. But they can only do one thing at a time. Okay, so that's how a committee or a candidate would log in and use the website. As far as the public goes, so let's go to the home page, and we'll pull up the live website for you. This is currently what's on the website at this time. You'll see the actual website here. The public has the option of viewing the filings by candidate, by committee, or by election. If we click on one, if the public is not aware exactly what election they're really interested in looking at, they do on View All. These are the elections that are currently stored in this system. They click on which one they want. It gives them the list of offices that are up on that particular election and how many candidates are actually on file for these individual offices. They say, okay, I want to see who's running for supervisorial district number 2. We click on that. It gives us the name of the candidates who have signed up for online filing for this particular office. The website has a little disclaimer that says this is not necessarily the full list of candidates who have actually filed for this office. You will note Mr. Herb Gooch is listed on this list. He did form a committee. He did come in and sign up for online filing. However, Mr. Gooch did not actually file papers to run for this office. Right. However, he has a committee open for this office. Therefore, he's displayed on the website. Until he terminates, he will be here. And actually, he'll still remain on the website as terminated as a candidate for this particular office. Okay, let's say we want to see. Okay, let's look to see who's running. These are the reports that this particular candidate already has online. His initial report and then the reports that he has filed to date. Each candidate should have something along this line with regard to the different reports. They all will have a 410, which is their statement of organization, which shows the full name of the committee, where they are located, how they can be contacted, who their treasurer is. Second page shows where the committee account is, what office this particular person is running for, and at what election it's going to be held. This is what the 410 actually looks like here. We close that form. These are the individual, this is the semi-annual report, this is the pre-election report. You'll note that it's the same form, so as not to cause any confusion. The last report, which was due this past Wednesday, gives you a current view of this particular candidate for this contest. This is the cover sheet. This is his summary page. And then, of course, all the individual attachments. You'll see that on the contributions as well as expenditures, the addresses are automatically deducted. However, I can assure you on the original reports that are on file in our office, they are complete reports. It's simply due to legislation that addresses cannot be displayed on the web. And that was also ISD that wrote that into the program that automatically deducts that information. The treasurer does key in all the addresses, but for public display, those are not made available. Now, should a reporter decide they want to know who all those people are and how they might be able to get a hold of them, data export is what's a part of this program that is made available for mainly reporters and or the public who is interested in getting all of the information from each one of the candidates. If you do all the financial transactions, you'll get the complete report. If you do just the summary pages only, then you'll get just the cut to the chase numbers if you're looking specifically just at numbers. You'll see that this is telling you it's an Excel program. Should I click on one? Let's see if it... This tells you across the top what schedule page it is, the name of the committee ID number, what type of report, the time frame of the report, beginning, ending, the type of transaction date, if it's an individual or committee, and who that person is all the way across, and the dollar amount. So this is to help you track, or the public to track, the information that has been downloaded already on the website. And this does capture every single candidate that is on file. Now, it also captures each election. So, because it's in Excel, it's up to the user to specify if they want all elections or just a particular cycle. So that particular person who is interested in getting this information, that's their responsibility to filter the report as to the time frame that they are actually looking into for this information. I click all the way up. Okay. Well, we'll go down here. Come on. Where am I? Okay. So the public has the options of viewing the ordinance, viewing the expenditure limitations that apply to which offices, looking at the individual reports for each one of the candidates that are running for only the county offices, or getting actual blank forms. When a candidate signs up to participate in the online program, it automatically provides them with the forms that they need, so they don't have to bother with creating their own forms or filling out blank forms. But should the public want to get a form, that's what this is available for. This is the data export, and then this is for candidates on how to log in. So this is what is available to the public as well as the commission, should they decide they want to do their own research with regard to the individual candidates and how the individual contests are going. You will note when we look at by-election, for example, these are all the offices that this particular election cycle has committees that are filing for. This is not all of the offices that are up for election. These are simply the offices that we have candidates that are required to file online for and that have signed up to do so. That's what we have right now at this time. Okay. So this is the note with regard to the 470. You'll see from that list that we currently have 3 candidates that are filing 470s. That's why they are not on this list. Okay. Can I answer any questions?
I note that this is Microsoft. If you have an Apple computer, will it still get this?
I do believe that there is something that ISD is working on at this time with regard to other systems, yes. That did in the very first election cycle 2 years ago. Those candidates, that issue did come up, so that was something that they started looking into at that time. So I do believe at this time anybody can access this information, yes. So, yes.
I have a question regarding
Sure.
the one candidate who did not agree to expenditure limits.
Okay.
You had stated that when they come to 75% of the threshold.
Right.
What is that dollar amount?
The threshold for a Board of Supervisors currently is $159,000. The original ordinance set it at $150,000, and then every odd year the county clerk does a CPI increase, and so currently it is $159,000 for a district office, which is supervisorial district. For countywide offices, it's $500,000.
So when they reach 75% of
Of
they
that
have
figure,
to disclose.
yes. Yes. Okay. So far so good.
Any other questions?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
After the meeting, we'll have a test. Item number 7, a discussion regarding possible recommendation to amend ordinance number 4322 and related to additional candidate and committee filing requirements.
Yes, Chair Peck and Commissioners, this item, as you recall, came up at the last meeting, and because it was not an agendized item, it was you were advised that it would not be appropriate to discuss it unless we put it on the agenda for your discussion. And it actually goes back to a complaint filed against Dr. Lopez's campaign for failing to file within the required time frame. Yeah. And as you recall, there was some question raised by your commissioners as to whether or not it would be appropriate for the commission to consider recommending something for the Board of Supervisors to consider in terms of amending the ordinance. And we had pointed out in our just cover sheet to you that obviously the commission at this point really has authority to look at and hear matters that are within the ordinance itself. And this particular requirement is a state requirement in terms of the filing. And should you be interested in doing anything, you would be looking at creating something that would be in addition to or run parallel to what the state requirement would be. I wanted to advise you that subsequent to this report being written, I did receive a voice message on my phone from Linda Parks in talked to her office today, and she asked me to please provide some comments on her behalf. She's attending a luncheon today and was not able to appear herself before the commission. Her thought is that this is something that she would be interested in seeing pursued. And the example she gave was that in her last election, she had a PAC form of developers kind of at the last minute, and she said they had expenditures of about $60,000 and they did not file, so no one knew who they were until well after the election. And given the minimal penalty of $10 a day in Virginia, explained to me that the maximum penalty is $100. That was, in her mind, a drop in the bucket for them to keep the information about who they were, from the public until after the election. So she just wanted to bring that example for the commission's consideration as to why she thinks this might be something worth looking into.
Does she have any recommendations of what she would like to see?
No, she did not. I think she was looking for the commission to discuss this item, and I did talk to council, and we feel that perhaps this might be appropriate for her to bring to the board, since it is the board that created the ordinance and would ultimately amend it.
Yeah, there's sort of a yin and a yang to this. For the most part, the purpose of penalties is not to really punish with a capital P. On the other hand, in cases such as Ms. Parks' case, she's right, it is a drop in the bucket for a developer PAC, which you would like to. I don't know how we get around that, however.
Was this the...
Anybody? Sure. Do you have any thoughts?
It appears that Commissioner Parks' recommendation would be for a more stringent guideline here. And has it been the case that all aspects of the ordinance have neither duplicated or been more stringent than state or federal laws?
Commissioner Rainier, I did talk to elections just prior to the meeting, and the example that Commissioner Parks brought up, because it was an independent committee, it would fall within the ordinance and the commission's ability to fine the group for missing it. The Lopez case would not have, because it was a candidate filing. So in some manners, the ordinance does provide the commission with an opportunity to, take some action. But in the case where it's a candidate, the ordinance does not. Am I correct, Virginia?
That helps to clarify. Thank you.
Anybody on the commission have any thoughts as what might be done at this point?
Dale, in the example that Supervisor Parks gave, did she have a state remedy?
I'm not sure. Is there a state remedy for that?
The state fines the committee for filing the reports late.
Which is the $10 per day, up to
And that's the
$100.
$10 per day. So that is the state remedy.
That is the state remedy.
And there's no remedy for that situation currently in the ordinance?
They would have, the member of the public would have to officially file a complaint with the state for anything further.
I think it's an important issue, and I'm familiar with that happening in elections of learning about election day or later where all this money was coming from suddenly, and it. And certainly $10 a day wouldn't be anything to a big developer or company.
I would agree. My only concern on that was that most of the time, you're not really worried, about it being some egregious violation. On the other hand, stealth money coming in too late to do anything about it is precisely what we're here for. But how to get around making the determination to apply a ruler or execution or anything in between, I don't know. That would be the dilemma. I feel. I don't disagree with you that it could be egregious, and it's what we're here for. But how to determine what would be a reasonable fine, I don't know. I don't know how to do that.
Well, may I recommend that Supervisor Parks address the group or have some representative address the group on that issue since she raised it?
We might both have Supervisor Park give further information if she'd like to, and also have the staff take a look at it too. Am I being clear about what the problem I see on it? Okay. Any other, Jane, did you have something?
No, I mean, I know I know from experience that it is a very serious problem.
Oh yeah. And if there's any way to get around it, they will find it.
Right.
I grant you, but that doesn't stop us from trying.
And it appears this may be a loophole that could be exploited, and perhaps has been. But it's not really within our authority to amend, correct? Isn't it? That's something the board has to do, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's correct. It would be the board's decision, policy decision to amend the ordinance.
I think back what Judge Peck originally said, that Supervisor Parks should probably bring this before the board, and unless is there a requirement that we have some sort of recommendation?
It's not a requirement. You could, as a commission, you could certainly indicate that you share her concerns and would agree that it's something that should be looked at. There isn't any harm in that.
Well, it was very frustrating in the Lopez case to just have no remedy, So
Those of us in law understand that well, though.
we like remedies.
Yes. Well, is it all right if we simply pass the buck to the board and say that it is something that certainly concerns the committee, but that we would need recommendations or action on part of the board?
Okay. We can, absolutely. I can let Supervisor Parks know that you share her concerns and would encourage her to pursue it with the board.
Do we need to do
Do we
that?
need a motion for that?
But also that we pass on our recommendation that the board address this.
Do you want to make that motion?
Also,
I'm not sure I know what suggestions we have other than stating that it's a concern. Do you have?
That'd be my just expressing our concern about that it's an important issue to be addressed by the Board of Supervisors. Also move.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded that we pass the buck to the Board of Supervisors and indicate that it certainly is something that is of concern to the Commission, but the authority for doing anything about it is with the Board. That's pretty well state what you're saying. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Anything further on item number 7?
Nope, that should take care of it. Thank you.
Item number 8, the Commission operating policies, draft revisions for discussion purposes.
Yes, Chair Peck and Commissioners, at the last meeting, we provided for you for the first opportunity to review some suggested revisions to the Commission's operating policies, many of which were ministerial and cleanup, others which were actually more of a policy nature. And based on our discussions with you after that meeting, I met with council, and we have provided you with actual further revisions to that ordinance. And you should have received in your agenda packets 2 copies of the operating policies. One that had changes in both red, which were the original changes, and the other in blue, which were further changes that are being recommended after the meeting. And then we provided you with a clean copy of the revisions, just so you could see how it would look in final form should you decide that this is the way you'd like it to now read. Just to point out some of the major changes, we returned to the concept of having commissioners act as a reviewing commissioner in the issue of determining probable cause. And that is a result of the council's discussion with you at the last meeting of how it was originally intended that procedure would take place, and you seem to be in agreement that would be all right. So if we return to that scenario where the chair or vice chair, in the chair's absence, would select one of the commissioners to act as a reviewing commissioner to find probable cause. The change that takes place after that is more to identify who then becomes a party to the actual investigation, should there be an investigation after probable cause. And we've identified that there is now a complainant as well as a petitioner. And the complainant would be the individual who originally brought the complaint before the commission. The petitioner then could be your volunteer attorney, whom you would assign as an individual who would actually look into determining whether, in fact, the ordinance was violated and there was a reason for the probable cause determination in the first place. So those are sort of the bigger items that we made adjustments to in the policies. I don't know. I think most of the rest of the changes were related to other items that we talked about. Do you have any questions about what we have recommended?
I have a question on page 5.
Mm-hmm.
Under the county clerk duties,
Yeah.
and it's item F. I'm just curious as to what happened prior to having that statement in there. Was that happening just as a matter of process already?
Yes.
And
yes.
so now we're just not clarifying that?
We're clarifying it because it's actually the Elections Division that's reviewing the candidate filing statements, and their staff would be the first to determine whether or not a violation had actually taken place.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? This is basically, a lot of this is simply clarification or cleanup to
Right.
have the operating procedures reflect how, in fact, we're really operating.
That's correct, yes. And much of it came about after we had the experience of processing our first 2 complaints and
Yeah.
realized that there were some areas that needed a little adjustment, modification.
And I'm sure we'll have more as we go along.
Oh, and I would point out that we also changed the title of the hearing from an administrative hearing, and it's now being referred to as an evidentiary hearing to better clarify what in fact is occurring at that hearing, because we're not really having an administrative hearing that's being presided over by some type of administrative law judge or something of that nature.
Just a question on the difference in colors. There are some changes in blue and some in red.
Yes, the red changes were the original changes, very first changes. The blue would be what we changed after the last meeting, so that you'll know how it started out in terms of the revisions, and then what we're recommending now as additional revisions.
Commission need any more time on this? I think
Well, there are a couple of questions I have, and one that does not directly relate to the actual changes recommended here. At our last meeting, the issue of probable cause came up, and I know that we're going to be faced with the operating policy's definition of probable cause each time one of us is assigned that responsibility. I plead guilty to being in a state of jet-laggedness at our last meeting when I indicated that I thought that the probable cause was comparable to a demur. So I did rush home and check out Black's Law Dictionary on the definition of probable cause. I notice here that the definition at page 10 is very similar to Black's definition. Of course, there are different definitions for criminal probable cause in a criminal matter versus probable cause in a civil matter. But the one word that really stands out and bothers me is in the second line where it states to believe or entertain a strong suspicion. And none of the definitions that I saw required a strong suspicion. Most of them indicated more than a mere suspicion. And I understand it's a matter of very esoteric interpretation there of the terminology, but I would, based upon our lengthy discussion on that issue last time, I would make a recommendation that the word strong be changed to, or simply eliminated, entertain a suspicion, or more than a mere suspicion.
Could you substitute for strong the word reasonable?
Reasonable was my original thought, yeah.
Does everyone on the commission agree with that? Could we ask that you substitute that? It takes it out of a mere and puts it into something more than mere but less than strong.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, we will make that change.
Yeah. Any other suggestions or comments or questions?
Do the candidates have access to this document?
I'm sorry?
Do the candidates have access to this document?
The operating policies? The operating policies are published on the website, although obviously they're not in this condition right now. We'll put them on when all of the changes have been made. We'll have a clean version of it on the website.
Anything else? Any wants more time? Apparently, then we are, we want to confirm the operating policies as such. We need a motion for that?
Actually, I didn't put on the agenda to approve the operating policies because if you look at page 9 of your operating policies, it says the operating policies may be amended after they're circulated in writing to all commissioners at least 10 days prior to the meeting, and you should have received these probably 7 days before the meeting. So what I had originally thought we would do is at the next meeting of the commission, we'll make sure that the clean version of the ordinance with the change suggested by Commissioner Renier will go out to you within that 10-day requirement, and then you'll be able to adopt them.
We would take action at the
Right,
next meeting.
take action at the next meeting, correct.
Okay. Item 9 is the annual statement of economic interests, the thing we all love to talk about. Reminder of the deadline.
This is just a reminder to let you know the deadline is quickly approaching. The deadline's actually April 1st, but because I believe that day falls on a weekend, you have until April the 3rd. And I know our clerk would be quite pleased to have all of your statements in by the due date. Is that not correct, Madam Clerk?
Is it correct that since I just recently joined that I'm exempt from that for this year?
That is correct. You actually, you came in January, correct? Well, no, you would file your assuming, and that will take care of your annual. Yeah, but you actually, Jane, were approved back in the in a different time frame.
Yeah, the only thing was that I didn't get sworn in until,
Right,
I hadn't
right,
been notified of the assuming.
right.
So is that just one page in this document?
Pardon me?
Is that just one page in this
No,
document?
actually, it's the one page, but if you are required to file any of the schedules, you would have to fill out each individual schedule that applies to your situation.
It would be a lot easier for me if I saw the schedule from last year. This thing is,
Okay, what we could do is actually make a copy of your last year's filing, and right after this meeting, if you want to come up with us, and
sure,
we'll let you.
that would be greatly appreciated.
Okay.
That's what I did. I thought I'd done a copy of the assuming, because I did it for, I guess, all of '05. And so for this, I needed to see what I filed, and I couldn't find that I'd done a copy, and apparently I had not done a copy, and so I came to the office and got one.
I thought Judge Peck didn't have to do it since he's going off in June. Didn't we talk about that last meeting?
You do have to, yeah.
Did I?
Leaving office, you have to do one,
I thought we talked about that.
I believe you.
Yippee-ki-ying, as I recall.
You may be thinking about the ethics training requirement.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
that's why. Okay, I was trying to
But thank you,
help.
thank you very much for thinking.
Yeah, unfortunately, the statutes are the statutes, so you do have to file your annual, then you will file your leaving.
Oh, shucks. Okay, there's nothing more, I gather that's the item.
Just a reminder.
Yeah. 10 is establishing the volunteer attorney call list, and
Do you
we're
have
drawing,
names?
slips.
Yes, Roberta has the names in a bowl for you.
So we have various volunteer attorneys.
How many
Yes,
are we
what I
drawing?
did is I made a request of the current president of the local bar association and contacted individuals who were on the existing volunteer list to determine if they were interested in continuing to serve in that capacity, and created your list for 2006. And we just need now to establish the order in which they'll be called.
Okay.
Did I get one?
Richard M. Norman.
Is that one? Is it two? One, okay.
Tina L. Rasnow. Philip Garrett, is it Pantiz? P-A-N-I-T-Z.
Penance.
Penance.
Yes.
think it's Loye, Loye, and Barton.
Lloyd.
Lloyd. Daniel J. Pillay. And there's one left.
Oops.
Matthew, Guasco.
Wasco. Okay, is there anything further? We don't need to take any further action than that. We need then to schedule a next meeting and any proposed agenda items.
Generally, the commission schedules meetings for after filing deadlines, and your next filing deadline is May 25th, and then, of course, the election is June 6th. So you may want to consider scheduling your next meeting for immediately following the election, or whatever the
Is
pleasure
there
of the
any
commission
reason
is.
we should do it before the elections?
I can't think of any at the moment. We don't have any cases filed yet. I'll knock on wood.
Yeah.
No complaints filed yet. If a complaint should be filed, however, between now and the election, we would certainly need to call the commissioners and schedule something.
Is there any urgency to getting the operating procedures finally approved and online before the election?
That probably wouldn't be a terrible idea.
It wouldn't be a terrible idea?
It would probably be good, but I would hate to, make you come together for that only. It would be almost, there would be no other business for the commission to hear.
Well, what we could do is simply give you the authority to call a special meeting if it in fact became necessary, because it's not likely.
Correct, okay.
Anybody have a calendar where, if we did this, I assume early June is,
June 6th is the election, so I don't know if you want to do it later in that week or the following week. I know June starts to be busy for people in terms of vacation time and so forth, so I leave it to the commission members to let me know what their preferences are. And also what day of the week you would like to meet and time.
start with this, day of the week, what's easiest? June 9th?
Definitely. We would like to start meeting back in this room. So with that being said, Friday does seem to be about the best day at this time of the day. That would be good for room availability. You start working into Board of Supervisors meeting, Planning Commission, other meetings that we'd have to kind of start jogging around.
Well, let me just throw out June 9th, which is a Friday.
Okay.
Anyone have any objections to that day?
As far as the time, what would be your preference? Did you prefer to do it around the lunch hour again, and we can provide lunch for you first, and then you can come in and have your meeting, or what's your preference?
June 9th at 12:30 is with lunch preceding that for those who wish it.
Okay.
Hearing no objection, that'll be the order. Any agenda items that commissioners think ought to be on there, other than obviously the operating procedures, which will be on there. Anything else to come before the commission before adjournment?
Do we want any kind of feedback from the issue that's going to the board regarding what Supervisor Parks
we can certainly provide you with a report back concerning Supervisor Park's issue.
Anything else? If not, we stand adjourned. Roberta, here's your agenda.